Hey everyone, and welcome to This Explainer. Today we're unpacking a fiercely debated and honestly fascinating topic pulled straight from our source material. We're looking at the explosive intersection of artificial intelligence, geopolitical warfare, and the very real impact this technological leap is having on everyday citizens. Whether you view AI as the ultimate defense mechanism or a massive threat to our autonomy, we're going to impartially lay out the facts, the arguments, and the counter-arguments presented in our sources. So, let's just dive right in.
Right out of the gate, our source creates this instant intrigue with a really bold claim. The argument being made here is that the conflicts we are currently witnessing globally, particularly in the Middle East, well, they aren't just continuations of old tactics. Instead, they represent the absolute dawn of AI warfare. We're watching the very first iterations of machine learning being seamlessly integrated into actual military strategy, and it is completely changing the rules of the game.
To navigate all of this, here's our roadmap. First, the first AI war. Then, mandating defense compute capacity, followed by compliance through tenderization. After that, we'll pivot to the counter-narrative with the cost to communities. And finally, we'll synthesize it all in two narratives of tomorrow. All right, let's jump straight into Section 1, the first AI war, and the geopolitical thesis behind it. The core argument here is that immense computing power is now literally the ultimate geopolitical defense mechanism. We are talking about highly precision-driven ordnance. Think missiles capable of targeting a single individual with terrifying accuracy. We're looking at swarms of dirt-cheap drone technology and even predictive theater analysis that can instantly calculate complex weather patterns to optimize a strike. The source really emphasizes that global adversaries, specifically pointing to China, are aggressively preparing for this exact reality. The future of warfare, it isn't just about firepower anymore, it's about computing power.
To ground this somewhat abstract concept in reality, our source shares a specific recent anecdote. Two chopper pilots went down in the ocean. But instead of a traditional rescue operation, an entirely unmanned AI-guided craft was deployed. A young remote operator, sitting safely somewhere like Florida, used AI to precisely locate the pilot's beacons in the ocean, navigate this uncrewed boat to their exact location, and bring them safely back to an aircraft carrier. The argument here is simple. Absolutely everyone wants this level of protection for their service members, but achieving it, that requires massive, unprecedented amounts of AI compute capacity.
Which brings us to Section 2, mandating defense compute capacity, and a rather sweeping government proposal.
To actually fuel these advanced defense capabilities, the source proposes a highly controversial domestic mandate centered around one specific number, 20%. The argument is that every single new data center built in America, it doesn't matter where it is or who owns it, must, by law, dedicate at least 20% of its computing capacity directly to the government and the Pentagon. It is a massive allocation of private infrastructure for public defense. And the speaker in our source explicitly frames this data center mandate not just as a business regulation, but as a hardcore civic obligation. The logic goes, if you want to maintain your style of life, your freedom and democracy, you have to contribute to this AI defense grid. Furthermore, this is presented as a necessary shield against foreign data mining. Referencing past concerns over foreign-owned platforms, like all the controversies surrounding TikTok, they argue that adversaries are actively mining our data. So to counter that, having massive domestic compute power isn't just a luxury, it's a mandatory frontline of defense.
Moving on to Section 3, compliance through tenderization, which is a highly speculative warfare strategy.
Here, the source speculates on a completely new, honestly chilling military strategy termed compliance through tenderization for dealing with hostile regimes, using Iran as a hypothetical example. By defining this concept exactly as the source does, we can understand the proposal. Rather than massive, lethal invasions, a nation with superior AI compute can use satellite-controlled, predictive analysis to launch highly specific ordnance. Imagine they warn a regime to evacuate a specific bridge or an empty weekend home by Tuesday at 4:30 p.m., and then flawlessly destroy it. It's the strategic, non-lethal destruction of economic and personal infrastructure designed to gradually force a regime into compliance, all without causing mass casualties.
And the real key to this proposed tenderization strategy? This entire operation, the predictive analysis, the targeting, the deployment, would be controlled entirely from secure servers safely resting on sovereign U.S. soil. It represents this wild paradigm shift where military dominance is achieved not by boots on the ground, but by servers humming away in a heavily fortified data center stateside. Okay, let's pivot to Section 4, the cost to communities, because we have to look at the populist pushback.
Objectively, this explainer has to examine the very loud domestic pushback happening right now. People genuinely fear this is just another dot-com bubble where average citizens are going to foot the bill. There's immense frustration over tech executives mining uncompensated personal data, right alongside the looming terror of widespread working-class job losses. On top of that, the massive data centers required for this defense grid are literally draining local power and water supplies, threatening agricultural farmland, and fundamentally altering the landscape of small towns.
This visceral quote really captures the emotional core of this pushback perfectly. The anxiety goes far beyond just economics or water rights. It strikes right at the heart of human autonomy. The source highlights a profound frustration from everyday communities who feel like they are being entirely railroaded by disconnected politicians and tech elites. There is this deep, almost existential worry that as AI takes over, ordinary people are losing their fundamental understanding of free will and their ability to just be the rulers of their own lives. This leads us to our final section, Section 5, Two Narratives of Tomorrow, where we look at the synthesis.
The discussion plainly acknowledges this intense duality playing out not just in America, but globally in places like France, Germany, and Canada. On one side, you have narrative 1, the extreme fear of total disruption. As the source colorfully puts it, it's the fear that AI takes all the jobs and the robots eat the babies. But on the flip side is narrative 2, the undeniable optimism that AI is going to drive massive, unprecedented advances in business, education, and medicine.
To put this in context, the speaker in our source draws a direct historical parallel to the early 1990s and the emergence of the internet boom. By making this comparison, they are validating the public's current fear and angst, acknowledging that, hey, it is entirely normal to be terrified of such a dynamic change. But they also point toward the unexpected, massive future benefits that eventually smoothed out those early 90s fears.
And to practically illustrate this human benefit, the source shares a highly personal medical anecdote. The speaker recently had to undergo a full-body diagnostic scan. In the pre-AI reality, waiting for results on every single bone and organ used to take an agonizing month. Today, thanks to AI analyzing that massive data set, it took exactly 18 minutes. The technician was able to instantly refer him to his doctor for immediate medical action. This is the argument for progress. AI isn't just about blowing up bridges, it's about life-saving efficiency.
Furthermore, to counter the narrative of inevitable job loss, the source argues that AI is already revolutionizing small businesses, which, as they note, create over half the jobs in America. By utilizing AI, companies are seeing lower customer acquisition costs, dramatically better customer support, and the ability to generate entirely new revenue streams. The overarching argument here is that by making businesses way more efficient, AI will ultimately expand the economy, pay more taxes, and potentially create far more jobs than it destroys.
So, as we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with the core tension woven throughout our source material. We've seen the argument for AI as this essential shield against geopolitical threats and as a miraculous tool for medical and economic advancement. But we've also seen the very real, very human fears of resource depletion, job destruction, and the loss of our fundamental free will to tech monopolies. The question you have to ask yourself is this: will the promised security and medical breakthroughs of AI truly outweigh the immense societal costs to our local communities and our personal autonomy? It's a debate that is just getting started, and it is absolutely going to shape the rest of our lives. Thanks for exploring this with us today, and keep questioning the data.